Welcome to this week's Custom Roofing and Construction Bearcat pregame show. We're going to spend the first half of this show recapping some of what we saw last Friday night in DeKalb. Go through the stat leaders, kind of the box score on the scoring summary. Dive into what we saw that night from the team, and then dive into, I'm sure, what everybody is who wasn't there and was there. Everybody who's been involved in this one way or another wants to hear more about how that game ended with the officiating and what our thoughts on that are. When we get through that, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back for previewing Gunner. Gunner's a bit more of a familiar opponent, so not quite so new to us, but we'll get into that in the back half of the show. So let's start the show by highlighting the situation and how we actually ended up in DeKalb. So, we're supposed to play our home opener 2 weeks ago. The week prior to our matchup in DeKalb against All Saints, private school at home. I'm getting ready for the matchup. I'm grabbing my things. I'm getting ready to leave in the next, hour or so. And I get a call saying, hey, there's some stuff going on. The game has been canceled tonight, which I know, really unfortunate circumstances what led to that. But everybody was fine and just kind of got an impromptu night off, bye week. The unfortunate thing about that is that next week, which was last week, was our scheduled bye week. So it left Coach Marsh and the Bearcats scrambling for a game. This was supposed to be DeKalb's homecoming. They had a game scheduled, and I guess Monday evening their opponent canceled due to COVID. So it left both programs looking for a game, and DeKalb actually posted on Twitter. The athletic director posted on Twitter saying, hey, anybody needs a game, we need a game. And Travis Marsh told me he saw that on Twitter, and he just responded with the famous gif of Forrest Gump waving at Lieutenant Dan from the boat,
waving the hand,
from the shrimping boat. Yeah, said, hey, we're open to it. So they got in touch and they made this thing happen. So we bust out to DeKalb Friday night. When I pulled it up on the internet, and the moment I got there and I saw the stadium, some of the surroundings of the stadiums are different. It's not right off a highway. They have kind of a different concession stand situation. But when you look at the field and the stands and the press box and everything about the playing surface, it reminded me of Massey Stadium prior to the turf. What'd you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, the same color scheme, the orange and black. Ryne, it was really reminiscent of Massey, and especially the old Massey with the natural grass, because they're still rocking the natural grass out there in DeKalb. The only thing that I really noticed that was different is they had quite the crown in the middle of the field, for the water to run off on the sides, and the grass was not exactly up to, in my day, would have been Coach Lenny Gray's standard of grass keeping, because he spent many an hour out there taking care of that grass at Massey, and it was immaculate when we were playing. Theirs was cut a little bit longer, and it may have messed up our timing in our passing game. Honestly, in a few situations, I thought the guys didn't look as fast as they normally do on turf, and that might have played a role in some of the timing issues in our passing game. But man, you said it. It looked like the same builder, the same architectural crew put that stadium together that put Massey together.
The stands were pretty much the same size, same look. The press box, they had their windows. On their windows, they had some black siding around their windows. Outside of that, the press box was the same. Like I said, you just close your eyes, dropped off the middle, and open it, and you're like, hey, this looks a lot like Massey. So kind of didn't feel like we were 3 hours away from home, But that takes us into the game. Let's go through kind of the box score and some of the drive summaries here, or the scoring summaries here. Game started off with a bang. I was concerned on how we were going to start, what our energy level was going to be like after a long drive on a kind of a weird week. And Ashton Kirby takes the opening kickoff back for a touchdown. Pretty much untouched. It was just a good blocking, good return right down their sideline. And we get their homecoming kicked off with a Pilot Point kickoff return for a touchdown. After that, we're in the gate. It's the first time that we've actually executed the swinging gate this year. The first time we attempted. We went for two and we converted. Gave us an 8-0 lead. DeKalb responded to that with the same quarterback-type power run that Plainview got us on a few times, where they kind of lead a couple running backs through a hole and follow with the quarterback. We hit the running backs, but nobody's left there for the quarterback. They take that in for 6, and they go for 2, and they convert. That happened early in the second quarter, though. So early in the second quarter, it was 8-8. And then the Bearcats made a couple stops and got in the end zone a couple times. Both 1-yard runs, one by Ish Harris. We kicked the extra point there, made it 15-8. And then on the following drive, Wyatt Smith had a real short touchdown run as well, kind of like a quarterback sneak type situation. Kicked that extra point. So we go into half up 22-8. We're going to get into what we saw from the team up to that point, but score-wise and how the game was unfolding, I felt like the lead could have been more, but I was on the phone at halftime and I was, telling my wife, yeah, this is, we got another half to play, so we'll see what happens. But I feel fine about where we're at, 22-8, with no inclination that the game was going to turn one way or another.
Exactly.
And then that leads us to the second half, where we kick off to them. We get a quick 3-and-out. They give the ball to us, and something you hit on a little earlier, maybe some timing issues in the passing game. We kind of go 3-and-out real quick and punt it right back, and that gives DeKalb their first of 2 consecutive really long drives. The first one was 16 plays, well over 8 minutes for them to get into the end zone. And they cut the lead from 22-8 to, I think it was 22-16. I think they went for 2 and got it as well. So now it's a 6-point game. And then they go on. Pop Point gets the ball back. I think we got a first down or 2, but ultimately had to punt. And then that led to another very similar drive, 14-15 plays. DeKalb punches it in the end zone, and they kick an extra point to take a 23-22 lead with under 2 minutes to go, right?
Yeah, and they got a key, it wasn't at the drive, they got a key pass interference call, I think on Wyatt, over the middle there that was questionable, and it was on 4th down.
Couple penalties on that drive. You're right. I'm glad you highlighted that. Because if the traveling party wasn't huge, but I will tell you the Bearcat traveling party that made it, they were pretty loud. They were pretty vocal.
They were vocal.
And on that drive, I think you started to sense some frustration from the parents, because some of the calls were, at this point in the game, the officiating I didn't think was terrible, but some key calls were kind of going against the Bearcats, and we saw some things on the other way. And I remember this specifically on that touchdown that kind of gave them the go-ahead. There was what I thought was a pretty obvious hold at the point of attack on the left side that was totally uncalled after a few key calls on the Bearcats. And so at that point, like you said, you start feeling the attitude in our stands start to turn. They're letting the referees have it at this point, which, it is what it is. High school football, they're doing their best. But, at the same time, you're starting to see a pattern develop, right? And the parents are just pointing it out.
Absolutely.
Bearcats get the ball under 2 minutes to go, and I think they've oh no, this got away from us. We better wake up. And they do. They went right down the field. They did have a big 4th down that was converted on a pass from Wyatt Smith to Crew Chandler on a crossing route. Converted it, got us deep into the red zone, and with 22 seconds left, Wyatt Smith with his second rushing touchdown of the night puts us in the end zone and puts us up 28-22. So 6 points. No, wait, I take it back. It wasn't 22. It was 28-23. So it was a 5-point game.
Yeah, they made.
And I think we went for 2 to try to make it 7. We went for 2 to try to make it 7. And we did not convert, which made it a 5-point game. And that was, 22 seconds left. Okay, all you got to do, cover a kick, maybe defend 1 or 2 passes, and we're good. And we looked at each other and said, surely they're not going to kick it deep. And we kicked it deep right to DeKalb's best player, Winky Williams, who really we'd kept bottled up all night. And we bottled him up. We surrounded him. We got our arms around him. We wrapped him up. We slung him down. And this is where it starts to get wild, because after the tackle was made, I looked at you.
Yeah.
And we both kind of took a deep sigh of relief. You even put your hand on your chest. Man, that was. Yeah. And then we look on the field, and Winky Williams is running down their sideline with the ball.
Yeah, exactly.
And our players are chasing after him, and we're trying to figure out what happened. And our stands, they're losing it. Our coaching staff is losing it. The players are screaming. Finally, we push him out of bounds at our own 22-yard line with 7 seconds left. I believe even the official on the Bearcat sideline started running in to mark Winky down and had brought the whistle to his mouth and started to blow the whistle. It wasn't a full-blown loud whistle, but I think he saw the runner down.
Yeah.
It was an obvious, it seemed obvious. We started breathing like, oh, great, we're good. Well, apparently one of the officials told Travis Marsh that his knee wasn't even close to the ground. He was never even close to down. And on the broadcast, it was clear as day. And if anybody who follows any of the PotPointBearcats.com social media has seen the still shot that Chance got of him clearly being down. And the thing that gets me about it wasn't like deep in a pile. He was at the back of a pile, like multiple refs should have had their eyes on it. And how they all missed it. I think the one on the Bearcat sideline saw it, and why he didn't go in and say, hey guys, I saw it, but maybe he didn't because he was the one closest to our stands taking some of this abuse, Yeah. But okay, we've survived that. Now there's 22 seconds left. Just got to defend the pass. Roll out, Hail Mary situation. The kid throws it up. We're there. We're standing there. We're covering. No big deal. We're in position. It's great. And a push off from the receiver that I want to dive into more in a little bit, but there was some contact in the end zone. Receiver comes down with it, real controversial. They rule a touchdown. That gives them a 1-point lead with 1 second left, and they go for 2 to try to make it 3 points, and they do not convert. And that left it 29-28 with 1 second left. The Bearcat return team did a smart job and just caught the line drive kick and immediately fell, gave us one play on offense, couldn't get it done. And so after all of that, we go to the cab and take a loss, 29-28. The stat leaders on the game, Wyatt Smith, 11 of 20 for 123 yards. Ish Harris, 141 yards and a touchdown on 16 carries. Leading receiver for this was Crew Chandler. He caught the sophomore, right? I believe Crew's a sophomore.
Yes.
6 catches, 94 yards. He was kind of the go-to guy, running a lot of crossing routes. So, there's a lot to talk about before you get into some of the officiating at the end on what kind of really got us to this point. I had said at the top of the show I was concerned about what the energy level was going to be, mostly to start the game after the long bus ride. That my nerves are kind of put to ease the opening kickoff return. But it kind of reverted back. I felt like there was a real lack of urgency, lack of energy coming from the Bearcat sideline that I think kind of fed into keeping DeKalb into this game. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely, Ryan. I mean, to me, the entire game had a strange feel to it. Of course, the circumstances leading up to the game didn't even know who we were playing until late Tuesday, obviously. And then, maybe we had a sigh of relief when Ashton took that opening kickoff to the house and kind of took the excitement out of the homecoming for them, because as we talked during the game, their stands were pretty quiet in that first half. And then a large part of the second, third quarters, it had that eerie feeling of like the Whitesboro game from last year. Just low energy, just like the flow of the game just wasn't going either direction really. But then things really started to click offensively for DeKalb, in that third quarter, and they started establishing their offensive identity, and they were kind of nickeling and diming the Bearcats to death with their little diamond pistol formation and the fakes and everything. And then and as we discussed, that the officiating really started going their direction there the last couple of drives, and man, it was just such a strange outcome. And like you said, we had a nice little 22-8 halftime lead. I think we like our track record coming out of halftime, making adjustments and keeping our foot on the gas, but it just wasn't there. It wasn't meant to be last Friday.
Yeah, this game had a real feel of you see this a lot in college football, especially when good teams go on the road and play teams that aren't up to their standard. One of two things generally happens. So like the good team shows up and they put it on the other team early, and the other team is expecting that, and they kind of just say, okay, it is what we thought. They go into a shell, and it's kind of a rout. The other thing that happens sometimes is that team that's clearly the better team shows up, doesn't play with full energy, lets the home team hang around, and the next thing you know, you're midway through the fourth quarter on their field during homecoming, and you could feel the energy for the whole game on both sides was pretty low. But about a little bit into that fourth quarter, it starts getting loud over on their sideline, loud over in their stands. Their energy level, you could see, took a major jump. And that was strictly because, we let them hang around, and then trying to put that cat back in the bag once it's come out is a tall task. So there wasn't the officiating up to those last two plays of the game. I would kind of mark it as, hey, it's high school officiating. They're out here, they're doing their best, they're not perfect, they're going to make mistakes. There were some calls that, I didn't feel like were totally egregious. If the only call I'm sitting here talking about is the pass interference that we got called on us and the hold that they didn't get called on them, I'm not even bringing the officials up in this podcast here. I'm not even going to bring it up because there were many other issues. And they, like I said, high school officials, they're doing this part-time, okay. But the kickoff was really concerning because it was not like in the middle of a pile where you couldn't see. I actually was able to pull the clip off of YouTube and do a screen record on my phone. I've watched it a few times. It's wide out in the open. It is not hidden. 2 or 3 receivers had to have referees. At least 2 referees had to have a clear line of sight. How they missed it, how they refused to get together to really discuss and get the call right is kind of the first really alarming thing to me. Like, got to get that call right. But in the end, he didn't take it for a touchdown. We pushed him out at the 22. So you have kind of a lackluster effort. You have some bad calls that have went against you to this point. All you had to do was make a tackle and a kickoff, and you did that, but the referees took that from you. But it's okay. There's 7 seconds left. They're on your own 22. They don't throw the ball very well, especially when they're throwing the ball. All right, we all know what's coming. Nobody was surprised when the snap came and they rolled out right to throw the ball. And they threw the ball into the end zone. And I think Ashton was the corner. There was another defender close to the area. And they're standing in the end zone waiting for this ball to come down. It's not a sharply thrown ball. It's almost like one of those jackpot, where you throw the ball up to a big group of kids and somebody catches it. It's kind of what the scenario is. And that receiver, you don't get to see it really good on the YouTube because the camera is following the ball. But that receiver, like, full body pushes his arms and legs into this push. Both hands pushes Ashton. Ashton actually could have done a kind of a better job selling it, which is a lot of big complaints I have when I watch professional sports, is like the overselling of penalties.
Yeah.
When it's like, you probably could have actually fought through that if you tried. This was the opposite of that. This was Ashton, even though he was having 2 hands with Gus Kidd's full effort exerting force on him, he's still trying to make a play on the ball. But after the kid pushes him, he's standing there all alone, catches the ball in the end zone. And the referee is standing 3 yards from them, staring at the play. Yeah, I distinctly remember as soon as the guy caught the ball, there wasn't, at least from us, there wasn't like a huge reaction from us because we all just was like, oh, that's okay, pass interference, no big deal. It's coming, yeah. And after about 3 seconds, when it became clear that there was not a flag coming, I don't yell at the referees. I don't throw big fits over much. But if we would have gotten on air, which was its own ordeal, we probably would have got our homer call that you and I talk about all the time.
Yeah,
with that call, because I had
in a bad direction there, in a losing way.
Yeah, because I was up on top of stands with my laptop, like both arms up in the air, just yelling, and everybody in the stands was just losing it. I have never seen a more egregious, more obvious call that, they kind of go back to, I said, these are high school officials, they're doing their best, this and that. All that is out the window. This was the most obvious thing I have ever seen. The referee was just mere feet away from it, watching the play. How we ended up not getting a call there is beyond me. So they score a touchdown, go up 1 with 1 second left. The PAT or 2-point conversion kind of irrelevant at that point. I guess they went for 2. They didn't convert. I don't remember the play because I was still up in arms about I couldn't believe what just happened. Line drive kickoff after that, and we just, we had one play to try to go 55 yards. And, it was a loss. There's a lot to unpack there for the coaching staff and the players. The energy level, all that was, I think, more to blame than the officials. But one thing I said to a few people after the game is, you overcome the travel, you overcome the poor energy, you overcame some calls along the way, you were in position to make the play at the end. There was an obvious foul. Referees, turned a blind eye, and you took the loss. But you live and you learn. As we're going to get into the next segment, there was a lot from this first week, or this last week, that the Bearcats can take from their matchup with the Cab and move into our matchup this Friday night with Gunner. So, you have any final thoughts on what I was just going through in the last week?
Yeah, Ryan, and I'm sure you'll come across this when you coach Rhett's team as it gets older. But one thing I try to tell my youth teams that I coach over the years is that, just don't let it come down to the end. Don't let it come down to 2 points or, a close game at the end in a basketball game or football game. Try to, win it early and run away with it, and then you don't have to worry about officials or anything else, And in most cases, you tell the kids, hey, that they're, we're both playing with the same officials, but there was a lot of things went against us, went against our Bearcats on Friday night, but. On a positive note, it's early in the season. You can learn a lot from it, and hopefully they come back even more hungry after the loss.
Yeah, so that'll be seen this Friday night, what the Bearcats learned from it in their matchup with Gunner. We're going to step away for a minute. We're going to come back with the preview to this Friday night's home opener. We'll be back after this.
Hey Bearcat fans, living in North Texas, you know all about bad weather. When bad weather does strike, look no further than James Floyd's Custom Roofing and Construction. Custom Roofing and Construction has built their business off of quality work and customer referrals. Let their friendly and knowledgeable staff ensure the project runs smoothly from start to finish. You can visit Custom Roofing and Construction on their website, customroofingdallas.com, or give them a call at 214-274-8353.
And we're back to the Custom Roofing and Construction Bearcat pregame show. We're about to preview this week's matchup against Gunner. It's kind of late for the home opener, but it'll be the home opener considering our what was scheduled as our home opener didn't actually happen, and then we played last week on the road. So this home opener will be a much more familiar opponent considering the two we faced and the other one that was on the schedule at this point. Gunner, have a long history with Gunner. We've played Gunner 26 times in school history. With the matchup against a 2, Pilot Point leads the all-time series, 20 wins, 5 losses, and 1 tie. That sounds all good. That sounds like one program dominant over another. But the alarming stat of that 25-1 record is in the last 5 matchups, the Bearcats are 0-5 against Gunner. So how, knowing what I know about the Gunner program, playing the games I played against the Gunner Tigers, seeing some of the games that they've played against other opponents, how we rattled off 20 wins and 1 tie in our first 21 meetings is pretty impressive, because that's, as long as I've seen it, been a pretty salty program.
Yeah, and they really, view us, I think, as a rivalry. Because they're not that far away from Pilot Point, so I think they always kind of looked up to our program. But nowadays they've got it rolling, man. They were on fire.
Well, speaking of getting it rolling, I know they've been playing good football for quite a while. I just went back the last 2 seasons, 2019, 15-1, the eventual state champions. Their only loss was to Pottsboro, who I believe played for a state championship that year. So Pottsboro's 3A Division I, which is what we are. Gunner was 3A Division II, so the fact that their only loss was a really close loss to the bigger schools, state runner-up, that's a pretty good football team. We played them that year, and they shut us out 35-0. That game was, I believe, in Pilot Point in 2019. 2020 last year, we played them again. They went 13-2 last year. They were the state runner-up. We played them at that beautiful new facility out there in Prosper, if you remember that. It was kind of I think Prosper wanted a trial run pre-COVID. I think the stadium was brand new. I don't think they'd played any games there yet, so they wanted to see what it would be like with people and COVID precautions. That game was 30-7. What I remember about that is the score was 30-7. It wasn't really a close game. I was really impressed with the Bearcats' effort level, which is a big thing coming into this week after the effort level we saw last week. I remember up the 3 games up to that point, we had won. I believe we'd won them all, or the 2 games up to that point, we'd won both of them. But the effort level was inconsistent from half to half. 30-7 loss that week, but it wasn't an effort loss. Gunner was a pretty good football team, but we had a really good effort that night. I was really, really pleased with the effort put out by the Bearcats. It was a stepping stone to build us for us to go into district. This year so far, Gunner started off right where they've left off. They're 3-0, outscored opponents 122-21 in those 3 games. That's an average of 41-7. They have allowed exactly 7 points in all 3 games. So it's going to be a test for both the Bearcat offense going up against a really tough defense, and then that Bearcat defense, which is, kind of had some moments so far this year against Plainview and DeKalb to where the other team was able to keep the ball away from them for 7-8 minutes at a time. This offense is pretty much the same offense we've seen from Gunner in the past, pretty much the same offense we just got done watching the last 2 games Pilot Point has played. So it's going to be more of the same. Let's see what, it's going to be big to see what the Bearcats front can do to try to slow down Gunner. But to get into more of the specifics, John, let's talk about more in detail what the Gunner offense looks like and what the Gunner defense looks like.
Sure, Ryan. So on offense, Gunner runs that possession-type offense, and they've got home run threats all over the place. They're a very experienced team this year. Their base offense is the pistol, but it's not the pistol that DeKalb runs. DeKalb, like the 3 running backs in the backfield, their base offense is really pistol, double wing, but then they will spread out and run multiple formations off that and throw the ball. Their quarterback, which I'll get into, Hut Graham, he's a senior. He's already committed to Texas Tech, so he's legit. And they execute their offense extremely well. They prefer to run the ball, but over the last 2 years, their passing game really has improved, especially under that quarterback. And they've got experienced wide receivers. And according to Max Prep stats, of course, they're not always 100% accurate, but they're averaging 108 passing yards a game and 390 yards on the ground per game. They've already got 1,170 rushing yards on the season, so they really prefer to run the ball. And they're going to run some clock as well, but they're certainly capable of big plays, and we'll get into those guys later. You want to talk about what defense they run?
Well, before I do that, I want to just talk about some of the stats. I noticed they had 12 different players carry the football so far this year. So they're a smaller school. I hadn't seen a roster yet, but I mean, how many running backs do they even have on the roster? They have 12 kids have carried the ball so far. Yeah,
well, I've showed they've got 8 returning starters on both sides of the ball, and contrast that to the year before. Last year they were returning 4 on offense and 3 on defense. So they're a lot more experienced, and I think you know how it goes when things are going well, then you get kids that want to join the program. So I'm sure, every kid that had an inkling of playing football is joining up because they're number 2 in state, and they've got a real good chance to win that Division II state championship this year in 3A.
Yeah, well, I mean, as always, this Coach Fazell, he's got a good staff over there, got a good team. Hudson Graham, tell me, I mean, he's committed to Tech. What is he going to play at Tech? Do you know? I mean, is he committed as a quarterback or as an athlete?
He's committed as a quarterback, and he's in his Twitter handle says he's an Elite 11 quarterback. He's he's 6'1", 180. Says he runs a 4.6. If you remember back to last year's game, Ryan, you remember he ran the ball so many times in that first half. We were watching him, and he was almost limping into the locker room after the first half. He didn't
carry the ball once in the second half.
Yeah. Then they went away from it because I think he had a little conversation with the trainer and said, "Hey, I'm not going to hold up if we keep this up for the second half." So he he didn't run the ball as many, at all. I think maybe one time in the second half, but they rely heavily on that guy, and he's going to be a good player, I think, at Tech, whether it's defensive back or quarterback or whatever.
So they're averaging 14 pass attempts a game, which, is kind of funny in this day and age of football and what everybody thinks. Well, that's not very many. I imagine for a Gunner Tiger program, 14 pass attempts a game is quite a bit.
It might be a record for their program.
Yeah. Well, you have specifics on the Gunner defense other than they're going to be real disciplined and tough?
Oh, well, absolutely they are. Their base is a 4-4 or a split, whatever you want to call it, and they run generally cover 3 behind that. It's pretty vanilla, but very effective. They're all great tacklers, and I'll get into it, but they got the same kid from last year as Ashton Bennett, number 32, is their stud linebacker / defensive end, and they got, Hut Graham, Ethan Sloan, and Cole Lemons are all two-way players that are very talented. And they're not, overly blitzing or anything like that. I think they've averaged 2 sacks a game, and they've got a few turnovers, but they're just sound. They get you in 3 and outs constantly. So it's going to be absolutely tough. And like you said, they're only giving up 7 points a game, and that's as we talked last year, we were just hoping the Bearcats would get on the board, because I think 2 years prior to that we had. We got blanked, we got goose egged, so it's going to be tough sledding on Friday night, for sure.
So watching them, they seem like the same program they were in 08 and 09 when I played them in playoff games, and I just remember their defense. We were better than them both years. They really gave us a run for our money in 08, though. They caught us at a time where we had some injuries. It was a bit tough, and we persevered. But even my 09, we were quite a bit better than them. But they made you earn everything. And that's one thing that I've talked about. If you're going up against a team that is more power than you, it's got more, you can't give them anything. You got to make them earn everything, because it's one thing I liked about the Bearcat defense is, hey, 14, 15, 16 play drives, yeah, you get worn out as a defense, but that's 16 opportunities for the offense to make a mistake, as opposed to, hey, they went 70 yards in 4 plays and scored a touchdown. That's, a quarter of the opportunities, because these offenses rely on misdirections and these weird handoffs of the pistol. They do put the ball on the ground sometimes, so giving them more snaps, more hands off, more exchanges, more ups the opportunity for them to make a mistake. But the line of scrimmage is going to be important this week, and with that being said, let's go into what your players to watch this week are.
Yeah, Ryan, for our Pilot Point Bearcats, I'm going to start with our guy, Curly Brockman. Haven't really highlighted him yet up to this point, but he's the leading tackler for the team, and we're not going to. I don't think we're going to rely too heavily on him offensively, but defensively, man, he's going to have the game of his life, because, like you said, out of that pistol, they run a lot of fakes, run some triple option. I mean, we've got to tackle these guys. We've got to be sure about it, and so. I expect him to be in double digits again on tackles on Friday. And then, of course, our quarterback, defensive back, Wyatt Smith, number 5, the junior. He's going to have to have the game of his life. Game 1, he threw for 275 yards. Him and Ashton had a real good connection. And last week, him and Crew Chandler seemed like they had a good connection. I think he had 94 yards to Crew Chandler. But he was a little bit off with Aiden Cox and Aston Kirby. But he's going to have to be on point with all the receivers on Friday if we're going to make any hay against Gunner. And then he's going to have to come up big defensively as well. And then of course Ish Harris. I hate to say it, but I don't see any scenario where the Bearcats win this game if our guy Ish Harris, the senior running back, defensive back, doesn't have the game of his life. And I think he had 16 carries last week. I mean, I really would like to see him around probably 30 carries and really be dominant in this game Friday. So we're going to need a lot out of him, and I wouldn't be surprised again if they move him to linebacker to try to neutralize that rushing attack from Gunner. And then for the Gunner Tigers, the 3 guys that they got, and it's almost the same 3 I highlighted last year. They've just gotten more experienced. Number 32, Ashton Bennett, is their big-time playmaker at linebacker, and he'll line up at that fullback position, which is kind of behind the quarterback sometimes if they've got a one running back in the backfield. So he'll get some carries offensively, and he's in that Caden Pickens mold from Plainview. He's just a real hard-nosed runner, and he's tough as heck to bring down, and he's real energetic, and he makes plays defensively. They got him running a 4.7, 190 pounds, 5'10 junior. And then the second guy is Ethan Sloan. He's number 8, wide receiver. If you remember here from last year, Ryan, he's kind of the Cole Beasley type, if you will. He's like that slot receiver. It's super quick, very wiry, really fast. Runs a 4.5 40. He's listed 150 pounds, 5'8". So he's not the biggest guy on the field, but he's got a big heart, and man, he breaks tackles. He's very energetic. They love to give it to him on speed, speed pitches around the end and get him in motion, and they'll throw him the ball as well, and then he'll play some defensive back. And then the guy that we talked about at quarterback, Hut Graham, number 1. He's their senior, 6'1", 180 pounds, runs a 4.6, Texas Tech commit, like we said. And man, he's a real dual threat. He's only got 325 yards passing, but he's thrown for 5 touchdowns and only 1 interception so far in the season, so he's very efficient. He's run the ball 30 times for 276 yards, so he's averaging 9.2 yards per carry, and I think offensively total they're averaging like 9.4 as a team. So man, they run the ball well. And of course, Hut's favorite targets are going to be number 8 Ethan Sloan and number 9 Cole Lemons, and Cole Lemons is a senior, and he scored on us last year as well. He's their taller receiver target. That's all I got for players of the game.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm pretty interested to see the line of scrimmage this week, because I know Gunner doesn't have a ton of big kids. We don't have a ton of big kids. One of the players that I think have really seen a lot out of last week was Ryne, working with Coach Phillips at Fit Body. I felt like he made some plays this last week in the backfield. And another guy who I hadn't mentioned really before, who I really saw getting after the quarterback the first 2 games, has gotten in the backfield and made some plays, is PJ Scruggs.
Oh, yeah, PJ. Yeah, I remember he was making some plays Friday.
Yeah, he's gotten in the backfield. I know he's pressured the quarterback a few times. I think he even has a sack. I know he has some tackle for losses. But it's going to take some of these big guys to get in there and try to wreak some havoc, which is going to lead us into our final part of the preview this week, and that's your 3 keys to the game.
Yes, sir. Key number 3. There it is. Got my keys. So key number 3 is establish an offensive identity. I think, like I said, Ish only had like 16 carries against DeKalb. Of course, I think he went over 100 yards again. But honestly, I want to see him up around at least 25, 30 carries and really take over the game. And if they're putting 8 or 9 guys in the box and they force us to pass, and I'd like to see Wyatt really get on track with all the receivers, not just Crew or not just Ashton, but across the board on Friday. And key number 2. Key number 2 I've got was that we need to make Gunner single dimensional. So that means, for me, I would like to see us really focus on taking their running game away at all costs. I mean, they are capable of passing for sure, but if you got to pick your poison with these guys, I think we'd rather have them throwing the ball than running it, because like I said, they're averaging over 9 yards a carry rushing. So it's going to be really, really tough to control the game if we don't control their running game. Key number 1. Down with OPP. Yeah, you know me. You know that song, right? Naughty by Nature.
I do know that song.
You familiar with that one? All right. Yeah, I was about to say, that was like the song of the year in like 1992, so I was hoping you knew that one. So, OPP is other people's property. So in that, we got to really keep possession of the football and take it away from Gunner. So I think for us to beat Gunner, we really need to be +3 or more in a turnover battle on Friday. And like you said, a lot of fakes, a lot of triple option type stuff. They can put the ball on the ground. I think they had 3 fumbles against Pottsboro and lost them, but they still won the game like 51-7 this year. But that just tells you that they will turn it over if the situation presents itself. So we need to win that turnover battle on Friday night, and in that would help energize, I think, the home crowd. Like I said, it's our first home game of the year, and keep the momentum on our side. And we're going to need it because this game is going to be tougher than hiring quality employees that stick around at Lock Supply. You know what I mean? I mean, it's going to be tough.
It's just getting them in the door is tough, man. Getting them in the door, buying in is what it's all about. Well, John, I hope we're on the air Friday night. The circumstance that happened Friday night in DeKalb was just so out of left field, so unexpected. We were all defeated by it. You should, if anybody wasn't there, because you should have seen Roger Marsh by the end of the night. He looked exhausted from just, we couldn't get on air on the audio at all. Had a few moments where the video went out. I'm behind the scenes. I'm thinking Chance and Travis have done a lot of work this week, getting it all patched up and fixed to where we won't have the same software issues. That's ultimately what it was. It was totally beyond our control. It was some sort of software issue, things not talking to each other, which led us not being on the air. So I'm going to hope when we get out to Pop Point Friday night, that's not the same problem, because I'm excited to bring everybody the home opener against the really challenging Gunner Tigers team to see a good measure and stick of where this Bearcat team is at. So, all that being said, I'm looking forward to seeing you Friday night and letting the fans hear us and being interactive on the chat like we were last week. It was a good time, and just watching some Bearcat football. So,
absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, we'll see you Friday night at the home opener, 7:30 at Massey Stadium. Go Bearcats!